Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of This Week in Magic the Gathering. We're going to talk about the Standard Open in Denver for Star City Games. We're going to look at the Grand Prix 2016 promo card, and then we're going to wrap up with some Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's start things off with Star City Games Open in Denver last weekend. This was a Standard Open. Congratulations to Viktor A, who took this down with Esper tokens. So if you look at the top 8, you have Esper tokens, a Tarka Red, 5 color Bring to Light, Jeskai Black, Abzan Aggro, another Jeskai Black, a 4-color Rally, and an Atarka Red. So yeah, 2 Atarka Reds and 2 Jeskai Blacks, but overall this is a very diverse Standard and continues to be. Esper tokens is a deck that's been hanging around, maybe not as popular as some of the others, but it does well. And we'll take a quick look at the deck list here. Basically revolves around Monastery Mentors, Seeker of the Way, a couple Dragonlord Ojutais. Of course you got 4 Jaces and 4 Gideons as well, so this is a pretty expensive deck to put together. You have Obnixilis and Sorin in there too. So there you have it. Nothing too earth-shaking or new. I think Standard's pretty well figured out right now, at least for a few more weeks until we get Oath, but just wanted to point out the results of that particular tournament and basically say, hey, I think it's a good time for Standard. It is a very diverse. You can see that by the deck lists that are here in the top 32 for sure, and I'll leave a link in the comments below if you'd like to take a closer look. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the new Grand Prix promo for next year, and here is the artwork, and it is Stoneforge Mystic. So there has been a little bit of concern that the artwork doesn't really reflect, I guess, Stoneforge Mystic. Just the fact that there's nothing about this artwork that really makes me say that this has any relationship to equipment, other than she's holding some sort of artifact, it looks like. But overall, I think the art's very nice. I mean, it's very Zendikar-esque, and obviously you're not going to get a standard reprint of this card, so kind of cool that we're getting it this year, that we're in Zendikar, even if it's a Grand Prix promo. So let's take a look at the actual card. There it is. Of course, that'll be in foil treatment. I will point out at the bottom, it looks like this is a Judges promo. However, Wizards of the Coast did come out and say that that was a mistake when they were making the photo of the card to release in this version, and it's actually the Grand Prix 2016 card, so that's just an error when they did the typesetting there for this photograph. But it's pretty cool. I like it. It's interesting that you don't have, or you do have, a card that's not playable in Modern that you're getting at the Grand Prix. That's a little strange, but at the same time, I think it's cool that they're printing more of these. It's a great card for Commander. It's great for Cube. Doesn't see a whole lot of like Legacy or Vintage Play or anything like that, but still, there's a lot of players that would like to get a copy of this, and it's a pricey card, so you get a nice foil version with some different art out there. I think that's pretty cool. All right, let's move on to Q&A. As always, if you have any questions you'd like me to answer in a future episode, put those down in the comments below. It can be about Magic, about whatever you'd like. So let's start off with Brian Clem, who asked, do you have a favorite deck for Standard, Modern, or Legacy, and why? So I picked a few decks. Now, I'll start with Standard. I haven't had a chance to play with the new Standard yet. However, if I did, I'd probably play Jeskai Black. It's my favorite of all the decks, just kind of fits my play style and the way I like to play. Cards like Treasure Cruise, Dig Through Time. I like cards that are a little more control-y, let you kind of dig and sift through your deck. So that's the deck I would play, and hopefully we'll get a chance to play. As far as Modern goes, in competitive Magic, the deck I played the most is the Karn Urzatron deck, and I played a lot of different versions of Urzatron, but overall I've had a little bit of success with it. Had trouble with Splinter Twin back in the day. I think I didn't necessarily sideboard enough against that deck, but other than that, this has just been probably the deck in Modern that I've had the most fun with, although I have tried some others and enjoyed them. Legacy, I probably played more Legacy back in the day and than I did Modern. Favorite decks include Painter's Servant, Grindstone deck, which you can see the combo there on the screen. And another one of my favorites is basically any deck that plays Counterbalance, Sensei's Divining Top. In today's Legacy, that's Miracles, but in the past it's been things like Land Still. But I just really like this combo, and really enjoy now the Miracle deck with it. Joey Anderanen asks, how do you feel about the new generation of poorly made foils? Do you think Wizards is going to improve the quality? And if not, will foils drop in price? So I will say this, when you look at the history of Magic cards, there have been good foils and bad foils, and a lot of it has to do with A, the foiling process, but B, the manufacturer that is actually printing the cards. So a couple of the recent examples, which I think Joey's alluding to here, are things like Modern Masters 2015, where you had a lot of foils that were coming out scuffed and already in poor condition. Or in Battle for Zendikar, you have the special foil treatment that is going on the expeditions, and a lot of times the edges of those cards are kind of frayed and not in the best condition. So those are a couple examples. In the past, we've seen things like from the vaults that will come just out of the box bent. Even if you go back and look at some of the foils from like the Shadowmoor time period, like Shadowmoor Eventide, they are very dark. They have a very heavy foil treatment, and they do bend a lot like the foils from the vault. So we've seen different good and bad examples through history when it comes to foils, and I think we're going to continue to see that. I think we're going to see some good foils. Like, for example, right now, I think the foiling in Magic Origins and Battle for Zendikar, the normal foiling that I've seen, has just been fine, where in Modern Masters, of course, it was very bad, and I think that will rear its head again at some point in the future. We'll see bad foiling, we'll see good foiling. I don't think it's really going to change the value of foils. For the most part, some foils may lose value, like Modern Masters 2015 versions. People might not want to take the risk and go out and try to purchase those. But for the most part, there's always going to be players looking for foils, and they're more rare than the regular version of the card. Supply and demand, they're going to be worth money. And Commander players, players that play Vintage and Legacy, players that play Cube, a lot of them want the foils, so there's definitely always going to be demand out there. So I don't think you have to worry about long-term value issues. Magic Max asks, do you think that WotC did poorly with Battle for Zendikar, and do you think the hype was necessary? What reprints do you predict will be in Shadows over Innistrad? Okay, a couple of questions there. First off, let's talk about Zendikar and the hype, and I assume you're alluding to full art lands and expeditions, and I will tell you, as far as expedition goes, they're trying something new. I think it is selling more packs. I mean, I know if I'm standing there and I'm thinking to myself, do I want to buy some Magic cards? This can push me over the edge. I'm kind of buying a lottery ticket, and that's human nature in a way, and I think it's, from a marketing point of view, working. I do worry about the future, that this would bring a different type of special rarity that maybe they won't employ every set, but they might employ once, twice a year, that starts to become a little excessive and may result in some player backlash. Full art lands, I will say, I think that hype really came more from the community than it did from Wizards. I think anyone who remembered playing in Zendikar just remembers we're going to have tons of full art lands, but people just couldn't wait to get their hands on them. So they paid higher prices and drove demand for these fat packs just so that they could get them the first week or 2 weeks that the set came out, and they could get them for their deck. And that's a little bit short-sighted, I think, on the community's part, and it did create a artificial bubble. Then you got speculators out there purchasing these things up, trying to resell them, and it became really bad really quick, and unfortunately I think turns a lot of people off to the game. But I don't really think that was Wizards' fault. I think that was maybe all our faults for allowing that to get to the point that it got to. So as far as the set being done well or poorly, I actually like the set a lot. I think it's a really fun limited environment. I like the limited environment in this better than I did for Magic Origins or Dragons of Tarkir. I think that it plays at a nicer pace. It's not quite as fast, say, as Magic Origins. It's not a slow format like Khans was, but it's not a super fast one either. I think it's a really nice pace. And, you know, it's a standard set. You're not going to see an overwhelming amount of cards that are going to be played in, say, Modern or Legacy or anything. But I think it brings some things to the table for Commander. It's definitely going to bring your standard cards to the table. That's what standard sets do. Some people say that there's not a lot of cards that have made an impact in Standard, but I think there's enough when you compare it to sets from the past and stuff like that. So overall, I think it's a good set. I think it's well done. I like the flavor and the lore of Zendikar. So yeah, I'm overall happy with it, other than maybe some of the full art land issues, and I'm a little nervous about the direction of the future when it comes to things like expeditions. As far as Shadows over Innistrad goes, some reprints I think we'll see. I do think we will see a return to the enemy-colored check lands, or buddy lands, and mainly my thought for this is they're good flavor for Innistrad, and also you're coming off a land matter set. I don't think they're just going to cut that off, so they're going to give you some cool lands to play with. Other than that, I think the type of reprints you'll see are more things at the common or uncommon level that help kind of feed the flavor. Things like Typhoid Rats, maybe Slayer of the Wicked, those type of things, more so than you'll see like Snapcaster Mage or Liliana of the Val. I don't think you'll see those reprinted. They're just too strong. Travis Langard asks, if Legacy dies out, will cards on the reserve list, such as Underground Sea, lose value? Interesting question. So, first off, I will say this. I don't think Legacy will ever die out. There's always going to be a group of people to play it. Even if it's a small group, it will be enough people to make sure that cards on the reserve list or Legacy staples are still going to be valuable. And demand is part of the equation, but supply is a huge driver for why these things are valuable. Cards on the reserve list are rare. Rare things cost money, and that's not going to change. So your Legacy players, even if their numbers drop and even if there's fewer and fewer of them over time, they're still going to want to play. They're still going to want to change and build different decks. They're still going to invest in these cards. And there's also a market for these cards in the Commander community as well as the Cube community. So there's other people trying to get a hold of cards on the reserve list as well. And there's also just plain collectors that just want to have that piece of history. So I think you're safe with anything on the reserve list. Don't feel like you have to liquidate your collection or sell off your reserve cards because Legacy numbers are starting to go down. Now, there is still Legacy support out there, I guess minimally, from Star City Games, but it has gone down a lot in the past year and will probably continue to go down. Some people have talked about a version of Legacy that does not use reserve list cards, a non-reserve list Legacy, if you will, which is a really interesting concept, and I would like to see that and play that. It's almost like a super modern, and it does allow Wizards, if they chose to maybe support that format. And maybe you have a non-restricted or non-reserve list GP at some point, or Star City Games could potentially do an open like that, and it would be very interesting to see if that takes off. And if it did, would that mean Legacy would go the way Extended went when we got Modern? I don't think it would. I mean, Extended is pretty much extinct now, where Legacy, even if you did have the other version to play, I think there's still be some people that just are holdouts. It might feel like Vintage feels like today, where even less people play it, but I think it's still enough that you'd be fine. And overall, at the end of the day, like I said, don't worry about cards on the reserve list. I think cards that are valuable and people want to play with them, and the fact that they're never going to be reprinted again adds up to they're going to continue to be valuable. So having said that, hey, as always, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. We'll see you next week, and have a great day.
Hey, thanks as always for watching. This video, like all my videos, was made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Even a donation of $1 helps me to keep growing this community and creating better quality videos for all of you. Check out our Patreon page for exclusive giveaways and future goals for the channel. If you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the MTG news, spoilers, set reviews, product openings, or finance videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a good day.